There I stood in my cap and gown, clutching my phone like it was my lifeline, watching every other graduate get swept up in their family's arms while I remained completely, devastatingly alone. The auditorium was buzzing with celebration, cameras flashing, proud parents crying, siblings cheering, and I felt like I was watching it all through glass, separated from a joy I'd never be allowed to touch. My name is Helena, and this is the story of how one betrayal changed everything, how it led to the most incredible revenge you could ever imagine. I kept refreshing my messages, my thumb moving frantically across the screen. Nothing, not even a running late text. Deep in my gut, I knew exactly where they were. Emma's piano recital, again. It was always Emma this, Emma that in the Reed family. Emma, the golden child who could breathe and receive a standing ovation, while I was just the backup daughter, the one who worked herself to the bone for scraps of recognition that never came. The girl next to me in line, Jessica, was practically vibrating with excitement. Her entire extended family had claimed 3 full rows, grandparents who'd flown in from Texas, aunts and uncles cheering, little cousins holding handmade signs that read, "Congratulations, Jessica," in glittery letters. She kept turning around to wave at them, her face glowing with pure joy. "I can't believe my great-aunt Martha drove 6 hours just to see me walk across this stage," she whispered to me, her eyes sparkling with tears. "She's 83 and said she wouldn't miss this for the world." "Are your parents here yet?" I saved them seats in case they were running late. The kindness in her voice made my throat close up. I managed a weak smile, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. They're coming. Traffic, you know. But I knew they weren't coming. They were 40 minutes away at the Lincoln Center, watching Emma perform Chopin's Ballad No. 1 for the 3rd time this month. Because Emma's recital was more important than my college graduation. Because Emma's piano career mattered more than 4 years of my life spent bleeding myself dry for academic excellence. "Helena Reed, graduating summa cum laude." The announcer's voice boomed across the auditorium, and I forced my legs to move, one trembling step at a time. 4 years of 18-hour study days, of surviving on energy drinks and pure determination, of working double shifts at that horrible diner just to afford textbooks while Emma got a brand new Steinway piano delivered to our house. 4 years of sacrificing everything, and for what? To walk across this stage completely alone? When I shook the dean's hand and accepted my diploma, this piece of paper that represented everything I'd bled for, the applause felt hollow and distant. Less than 5% of students graduate summa cum laude, and I was one of them. I'd maintained a perfect 4.0 GPA while working 3 part-time jobs, while Emma lived at home rent-free with a full ride on the family bank account. I posed for the official photo, that practice smile cracking my face like a mask, and all I could think about was how the seats where my parents should have been were empty, accusing, mocking me with their vacancy. Other families were already planning celebration dinners, posting photos to social media with captions about their brilliant children and how blessed they felt. After the ceremony, I watched the exodus of happy families, their chatter filling the air with excitement about dinner reservations and gift exchanges. I overheard one father telling his daughter, "Sweetheart, we are so incredibly proud of you. 4 years of dedication, and look what you've accomplished. You're going to change the world." Another mother was already on Facebook Live, tears streaming down her face as she spoke to her phone. "My baby just graduated with honours. I'm the proudest mum in the world right now. All those late nights studying, all that hard work, it was worth every moment." I walked to my beat-up Honda alone, my graduation cap sliding off my head as I fumbled with the keys. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped them twice. That's when I finally broke down and called them, my voice already cracking before my mother even answered. "Mum," I whispered, and immediately I could hear Emma's piano in the background, that damn Chopin piece she'd been perfecting for months. "Oh, Helena, how did graduation go, sweetie?" Her voice was distracted, distant, like I was interrupting something important. I could hear the murmur of conversation, the clink of champagne glasses, the sound of celebration that should have been for me. You weren't there." The words came out like a broken sob. "I graduated with highest honours, Mum, summa cum laude. The dean personally shook my hand and said I was one of the most outstanding students in the engineering program's history, and you weren't there." There was a pause, and I could hear Emma hitting a wrong note and starting over. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry, but Emma's recital was tonight. You know how important this competition is for her future. She's been preparing for months, and there were scouts there from Juilliard and the New York Philharmonic Youth Program and what about my future?" I interrupted, my voice rising with 4 years of suppressed hurt. "What about the daughter who worked 3 jobs to put herself through college? What about the daughter who hasn't asked you for a single penny because I knew Emma's piano lessons were more important? What about the daughter who just achieved something incredible?" My mother sighed, that familiar sound that always preceded her choosing Emma over me. "Helena, sweetheart, you'll graduate again someday when you get your master's degree. But this recital was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Emma. The judges were specifically looking for someone her age, and if she'd missed tonight, it could have ruined her chances at—" "I'll graduate again someday?" I was screaming now, not caring that other families in the parking lot were staring. "Mum, this was my college graduation, 4 years of my life. I graduated with a 4.0 GPA, with honours that less than 5% of students achieve. And you think I'll just do it again someday like it's some casual hobby?" "You're being dramatic, Helena. Emma needed us there tonight. You're older, you understand these things. Emma's just 18, she needs our support more than you do. You've always been so independent, so capable of handling things on your own." "I needed your support too." The words ripped out of my throat like they were tearing flesh. "When did you decide that one daughter's dreams matter more than the others? When did you decide that my achievements were disposable? When did you decide that I don't deserve to have my family witness the biggest moment of my academic life?" I could hear my father's voice in the background, asking who was on the phone. "It's Helena," my mother said, covering the receiver, but not well enough. "She's upset we missed her graduation. I told her we'd make it up to her." The casual way she said it, like missing your daughter's college graduation was equivalent to missing a casual lunch date, shattered something inside me that I didn't even know could break. "Make it up to me." I laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. "How exactly do you make up for missing your daughter's college graduation? How do you make up for 4 years of choosing Emma over me at every single important moment?" "We'll take you to dinner next weekend," she said, coming back to the phone, with that patronising tone she used when she thought I was being unreasonable. "Maybe that nice Italian place you mentioned. Emma will be busy with private lessons preparing for her next competition, so we'll have more time to focus on you." More time to focus on me. Like I was some afterthought that deserved attention only when the real star wasn't available. Like I was the consolation prize daughter who got the leftover scraps of their time and energy. "You know what, Mum?" I said, my voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt more powerful than screaming. "Don't bother. Don't you dare bother. I just realised something tonight. I've spent 22 years trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it to me. I've killed myself trying to be good enough, smart enough, accomplished enough to matter to you. But the truth is, it was never about what I did or didn't do. You made your choice about which daughter matters a long time ago." "Helena, that's not fair." "Fair?" I cut her off. "You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been showing up tonight. Fair would have been acknowledging that your daughter just accomplished something incredible. Fair would have been caring about me even a fraction as much as you care about Emma, but we both know that's never going to happen. I hung up before she could respond, my finger stabbing the end call button with finality. I sat in that parking lot until every car was gone, until the maintenance crew started turning off the lights in the auditorium. The silence was deafening. I stared at my diploma through tears that wouldn't stop coming, reading my own name like it belonged to a stranger. Helena Reed, Bachelor of Science, Computer Engineering, Summa Cum Laude, all those achievements that felt meaningless without anyone who cared enough to witness them. That night, I drove to my apartment in complete silence. No celebration dinner, no congratulations calls, from friends who'd all gone home to their own families. I propped my diploma against a stack of unpaid bills and student loan notices, bills I'd accumulated because my parents' money was tied up in Emma's piano career, her competitions, her private lessons, her promising future. The apartment was so quiet I could hear my neighbours through the thin walls, their television playing some late-night comedy show. I sat on my second-hand couch, still wearing my graduation gown, and realised with crystal clarity that this was my life. This was what 22 years of being the other daughter had earned me. Excellence that went unnoticed, achievements that went uncelebrated, and a family that would choose Emma over me every single time without hesitation. 3 weeks later, I was driving home from my new engineering job, that position I'd landed despite having no family connections, no parental support, nothing but my own merit and determination. I was working double shifts to pay off those crushing student loans they'd refused to help with, surviving on 4 hours of sleep a night and pure spite. My body was exhausted, my reflexes dulled by emotional and physical drain. The truck ran the red light at 50 miles per hour. In that split second before impact, when time seemed to slow down like in the movies, my last coherent thought was bitter and prophetic. They'd probably miss my funeral too, if Emma had a recital that day. But then, something impossible happened. Instead of the darkness I expected, instead of whatever comes after death, I woke up in my childhood bedroom with sunlight streaming through windows I hadn't seen in 5 years. I was 17 again, my body young and strong, my mind sharp with memories of a future that had already happened once. And for the first time since that devastating graduation night, I smiled a smile that was pure calculating revenge. Because now I had something they'd never expect. A second chance and the burning determination to make them beg for my attention. The first thing I noticed when I opened my eyes was the hideous pink wallpaper. The same wallpaper I'd begged my parents to let me change when I was actually 17, only to be told that Emma's room renovation took priority. I bolted upright, my heart hammering as I took in the familiar mess of textbooks, the ancient laptop that took 5 minutes to boot up, and the mirror that reflected a face I hadn't seen in years. 17-year-old Helena stared back at me, acne-scarred and uncertain, but behind those young eyes burned the wisdom and fury of a woman who had lived through betrayal and death. I grabbed my phone, that cracked iPhone 6 I'd saved for months to buy while Emma got the latest model as a just because gift, and checked the date. March 15th, 2018. 5 years before my graduation, 6.5 years before my death. I had time. More importantly, I had knowledge. And knowledge was power in ways my 17-year-old self could never have imagined. My bedroom door burst open without a knock, because privacy was another luxury reserved for Emma. My mother stood there, already dressed in her real estate blazer, car keys jingling impatiently in her hand. "Helena, you're going to be late for school again. Emma's already had breakfast and is warming up for her lesson with Professor Martinez. Can't you at least try to be more organised like your sister?" In my previous life, those words would have sent me scrambling, apologising, desperately trying to prove I was worth something. But now, Now I looked at her with the cold calculation of someone who knew exactly how this story ended. "I'm not going to school today," I said calmly, swinging my legs out of bed. "I'm starting a business." My mother's laugh was sharp, dismissive. "A business? Helena, you're 17. You need to focus on your grades so you can get into a decent college. Leave the ambitious dreams to Emma. She actually has talent worth investing in." In my past life, that comment would have shattered me. Now it just fueled the fire burning in my chest. "We'll see about that," I murmured, but she was already gone, probably rushing to drive Emma to her precious lesson. I waited until I heard their car pull out of the driveway, then immediately got to work. I remembered everything, every major tech breakthrough, every viral social media trend, every stock that would skyrocket or crash. But more than that, I remembered my own potential, the potential they'd never bothered to nurture or notice. My first stop was the dusty corner of my room, where I'd hidden my old journals. Buried beneath teenage angst about boys and friendship drama were pages and pages of app ideas, social media concepts, and business plans that my younger self had dismissed as stupid fantasies. But I knew better now. One of those stupid ideas would become the foundation of my empire. I flipped to a page dated 3 months before the current date, a detailed sketch for a social media platform I'd called ConnectSpace. It was designed to bridge the gap between professional networking and casual social interaction, something that wouldn't exist in the mainstream market for another 2 years. In my previous life, I'd shown this idea to my parents, hoping for encouragement or maybe even a small loan to help develop it. My father had glanced at it for 30 seconds before saying, "That's nice, honey, but maybe focus on getting into a good college first. Emma's the creative one in the family." Well, Emma could keep her creativity. I was about to show them what real innovation looked like. I spent the entire day researching and planning, using every resource my teenage self had access to. By evening, I had outlined a comprehensive business plan, identified potential investors, and even started sketching the user interface. When my parents came home, chattering excitedly about Emma's breakthrough in her lesson, I was ready. "Mom, Dad," I called from the kitchen table where I'd spread out my work. "I need to talk to you about something important." My father barely looked up from sorting through Emma's competition programs. "Not now, Helena. Emma just mastered the most difficult passage in her concerto, and we need to schedule extra practice time." "This can't wait," I said, my voice carrying an authority that made them both pause. In my previous life, I would have backed down immediately, but death had a way of clarifying priorities. "I'm going to need access to my college fund." My mother's eyebrows shot up. "Your college fund? Helena, that money is for your education, not for whatever teenage whim you've cooked up this time." "It's not a whim," I slid my business plan across the table. "I'm starting a tech company. I need initial capital for development and marketing." My father actually laughed out loud. "A tech company? Helena, you're 17 years old. You don't know the first thing about running a business." "I know more than you think," I said quietly. "I also know that this idea will be worth millions within 2 years. I'm giving you the chance to be part of that, or I can find other investors." "Other investors?" My mother's voice pitched higher. "Helena, what has gotten into you? Yesterday you were worried about your chemistry test, and now you think you're some kind of entrepreneur?" I looked at them both, really looked at them, and saw exactly what I'd always seen. Doubt, dismissal. The absolute certainty that I could never amount to anything significant. In my previous life, their lack of faith had crushed me. Now it just made me more determined to prove them spectacularly wrong. "Fine," I said, gathering up my papers. "When you're reading about me in Forbes magazine, remember this conversation?" My father was already turning back to Emma's music scores. "Helena, stop being dramatic. If you want to play around with some little app idea, that's fine, but don't expect us to fund your fantasies when we have real investments to make in Emma's future. Real investments? Emma's piano lessons cost more per month than most people's rent, but that was a real investment. My groundbreaking business idea was just a fantasy. That weekend, I took a different approach. I researched every young entrepreneur success story, every teen who'd started a company and made it big. I studied their strategies, their pitch techniques, their networking methods. Then I started making calls. "Mr. Richardson," I said when the phone connected. "This is Helena Reed. I'm calling about the tech innovation grant your company offers to young entrepreneurs." James Richardson owned a venture capital firm that specialised in early-stage tech startups. In my previous life, I'd read about him in business magazines, but never dreamed I'd have the courage to contact him directly. Now, with nothing left to lose, I was about to become his most memorable cold call of the year. "How old are you, Miss Reed?" he asked after I'd delivered my pitch. 17, sir, but age is just a number when you're sitting on the next big thing." He chuckled. "Confident. I like that. Tell me about this next big thing." For the next 30 minutes, I explained ConnectSpace in detail, outlining the market gap it would fill, the revenue potential, and my development timeline. I spoke with the authority of someone who'd seen the future of social media, because I literally had. "This is actually quite impressive," he said finally. "Most adults couldn't put together a business plan this comprehensive. Where did you learn all this?" "I've been studying the market for years," I said, which was technically true if you counted studying it in a previous life. "I know this platform will revolutionize how people connect professionally and personally. I'll tell you what, Miss Reed. Come to my office Monday after school, bring your materials, and be prepared to present to my team. If you can impress them the way you've impressed me, we might have something to discuss." When I hung up, my hands were shaking with excitement and adrenaline. In my previous life, I'd never had the confidence to make that call. Death and rebirth had given me something invaluable, the absolute certainty that I had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. Monday afternoon, I walked into Richardson Capital wearing my best thrift store blazer and carrying a presentation that would change my life. The conference room was full of investors, analysts, and tech experts, all looking skeptical about the teenager who'd somehow talked her way into their building. "Gentlemen," I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "what I'm about to show you will redefine social networking as we know it." For the next hour, I presented ConnectSpace with the passion of someone who'd seen it succeed, and the knowledge of someone who understood exactly why it would work. I answered every technical question, addressed every concern, and painted a picture of the future that had them all leaning forward in their seats. When I finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Then Mr. Richardson started clapping, and the rest of the room joined in. "Miss Reed," he said, "I've been in this business for 20 years, and I've never seen a more compelling presentation from someone your age. Hell, I've rarely seen one this good from someone twice your age." "Does that mean you're interested?" I asked, trying to keep the triumph out of my voice. "It means we're very interested. We're prepared to offer you 100,000 in seed funding, plus mentorship and resources. There's just one condition." My heart stopped. "What condition?" "You'll need your parents' permission. You're still a minor, so any contracts will need their signature." I thought about my parents at home, probably discussing Emma's upcoming recital schedule and debating whether to hire a second piano teacher. I thought about their dismissive laughter when I'd mentioned starting a business. I thought about the empty seats at my graduation and the way they'd always made me feel like an afterthought in my own family. "That won't be a problem," I said with a smile that could have cut glass. "Trust me, they're about to become very supportive of my ambitions." Because now I had something they'd never seen before. Proof. Concrete, undeniable proof that their worthless daughter was about to become everything they'd never believed she could be. And the best part? This was just the beginning. I had 5 years of future knowledge and a burning desire for revenge that would fuel me through every obstacle they tried to put in my way. The girl who had died alone and forgotten was gone. In her place stood a woman with the power to rewrite history. And I was about to make sure that this time they would never, ever ignore me again. That evening, I walked into our house with the investment contract burning a hole in my backpack and revenge singing in my veins. The familiar sounds of Emma's piano practice drifted from the living room. She was working on that same Chopin piece that would eventually steal my graduation night. But this time, I wasn't the invisible daughter begging for scraps of attention. This time, I held their future in my hands, and they had no idea what was coming. I found my parents in the kitchen, my mother reviewing Emma's competition schedule, while my father calculated the costs of hiring additional music theory tutors. The sight of them planning Emma's future with such meticulous care, the same care they had never shown for my dreams, should have hurt. Instead, it filled me with cold satisfaction. "Mom, Dad," I said, setting my backpack on the counter with deliberate weight. "We need to talk. Now." My father didn't even look up from his calculator. "Helena, we're busy planning Emma's summer intensive program. Can this wait until after dinner?" "No, it can't." I pulled out the Richardson Capital contract and slapped it down on top of Emma's schedule. "Because what I have to show you is going to change everything." My mother glanced at the papers with that familiar look of barely concealed annoyance. "Helena, what is this? More of your business fantasies?" "Read it," I said simply. My father picked up the contract first, his expression shifting from irritation to confusion to complete shock as he scanned the letterhead and dollar amounts. This can't be real." $100,000 in seed funding, I said, my voice steady as steel, plus mentorship, resources, and a guaranteed Series A round if I hit my first-year targets. Richardson Capital wants to invest in my fantasy, and all I need is your signature since I'm still a minor. My mother snatched the papers from my father's hands, her eyes widening as she read, "Helena, this has to be some kind of scam. Companies don't just give 17-year-olds $100,000. They do when that 17-year-old has an idea that's going to revolutionize social media," I replied. "They especially do it when that 17-year-old just gave the most impressive presentation the senior partners have seen in 20 years. The piano music stopped abruptly, and Emma appeared in the doorway, her perfect blonde hair slightly mussed from concentration. "What's all the shouting about?" "Your sister thinks she's convinced some company to give her money for an app idea," my mother said, her voice dripping with skepticism. Emma's laugh was like wind chimes, light, pretty, and absolutely grating to my ears. "Helena, a tech company? That's hilarious. She can barely use Instagram properly?" In my previous life, that comment would have sent me running to my room in tears. Now, I smiled at her with the confidence of someone who knew exactly how this story ended. "We'll see who's laughing in a few years, Emma." My father was still staring at the contract like it might disappear if he blinked. "Even if this is legitimate, Helena, starting a business at your age, it would interfere with your education, your college applications." "College applications for what?" I asked, crossing my arms. "So I can work for someone else's company after graduation?" "Dad, I'm offering you the chance to be part of something incredible from the ground floor. This platform I'm building, it's going to be worth millions." "Millions?" Emma scoffed. "Helena, you're not even good at math. Remember when you needed a tutor for algebra?" "I remember a lot of things, Emma," I said quietly, and something in my tone made the room go very still. "I remember exactly who gets priority in this family and who gets forgotten. But that's about to change." My mother was reading the contract more carefully now, her real estate brain kicking in as she processed the legal language. These terms, Helena, if this is real, this is actually quite favourable. How did you even know to ask for equity retention and creative control clauses? Because I'd lived through watching other entrepreneurs get screwed over by bad contracts, but I couldn't exactly tell her that. I did my research. I know what I'm worth. My father set down his calculator and really looked at me for what felt like the first time in years. Helena, where did this come from? A week ago you were just what, Dad? Just your disappointing daughter who wasn't worth investing in. Just the backup child who didn't matter enough to support. The words came out sharp and cold. Trust me, I remember exactly what you thought I was. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma shifted uncomfortably, clearly not used to being anything other than the centre of attention. My mother was still studying the contract, her business instincts warring with her long-held beliefs about her daughter's respective potentials. If we sign this, my mother said slowly, what happens to your education? I'll be getting a better education than any college could provide, I replied. I'll be learning how to build an empire. 3 months later, ConnectSpace launched with the kind of buzz that tech journalists dream about. Within the first week, we had 50,000 users. Within the first month, we hit 500,000. The platform did exactly what I'd predicted. It filled a gap in the market that nobody else had even noticed existed. The venture capital world took notice. My parents took notice. Most satisfying of all, Emma took notice, though she tried to hide it behind her usual dismissive attitude. It's just a fad, she insisted at dinner, stabbing her salad with unnecessary force. These tech things never last. Look at MySpace. But I could see the uncertainty in her eyes, the way she'd started checking my social media accounts obsessively, the way she'd begun mentioning her entrepreneur sister to her music friends. The dynamic in our house was shifting, and we all felt it. By my 18th birthday, ConnectSpace had been acquired by a major tech conglomerate for $8 million. My 18-year-old self was suddenly worth more money than my parents made in a decade. The local newspaper wanted to interview me. Business magazines started calling. And for the first time in my life, my parents looked at me with something that resembled pride. But I wasn't done, not even close. While Emma spent the next few years perfecting her piano technique and competing in increasingly prestigious competitions, I used my platform and newfound wealth to diversify. I invested in cryptocurrency before it exploded. I bought stocks in companies I knew would skyrocket. I wrote a novel, a dystopian thriller about second chances, that hit the bestseller list and stayed there for 47 weeks. The irony wasn't lost on me when my parents started bragging about their incredibly talented daughter Helena to anyone who would listen, conveniently forgetting how they'd treated me in my previous life. They'd rewritten history in their minds, convinced themselves they'd always supported my ambitions. But I remembered everything, and I was saving the best for last. Emma's 25th birthday party arrived exactly as I'd remembered it, held in the same elegant venue, with the same guest list of family, friends, and fellow musicians. But this time, I wasn't the forgotten daughter hiding in the corner. This time, I was the guest of honour nobody had expected. I walked into that party wearing a custom Valentino dress that cost more than their mortgage payment. My latest business acquisition splashed across the front page of the Financial Times, and my new best-selling novel, climbing the charts. Conversation stopped when I entered. Phones came out as people recognised me from magazine covers and television interviews. "Helena," my mother gushed, rushing over with tears in her eyes. "Darling, you look absolutely stunning. Did you see we put your book on display at the gift table? Emma is such a huge fan." I looked across the room at Emma, radiant in her birthday dress, surrounded by admirers praising her latest recital performance. She was still talented, still beautiful, still the golden child in many ways. But for the first time in our lives, she wasn't the most important person in the room. "Helena," Emma said when she finally made her way over, her smile bright but strained. "I'm so glad you could make it. I know how busy you must be with all your projects." "Never too busy for family," I replied sweetly. "Happy birthday, Emma. I brought you something special." I handed her a gift box, and she opened it with a kind of theatrical flourish she'd perfected on stage. Inside was a first edition copy of my novel, signed with a personal message. But that wasn't the real gift. The real gift was what happened next. "Helena, darling," my mother said, pulling out her phone, "would you mind signing this program from your latest book tour? Emma's been following your career so closely, and she would absolutely treasure having your autograph." There it was, the moment I'd lived for, died for, been reborn for. Emma, the golden child who'd stolen my graduation night, standing there with my program in her hands, waiting for my signature like I was the celebrity she'd always dreamed of being. I took the pen, feeling its weight like a scepter of victory. As I signed my name with a flourish, I looked up at Emma and saw something I'd never seen in her eyes before. Genuine respect, mixed with just a hint of envy. "Thank you," she said quietly, and for once there was no condescension in her voice. But as I handed back the signed program, Emma leaned closer and whispered something that made my blood freeze. "I know what you did, Helena." My pen slipped, leaving a small ink blot on the paper. "What?" Emma's smile was sharp, knowing. "The accident that never happened. The future you somehow knew about. The way you changed overnight from my struggling sister to someone who could predict market trends like a fortune teller." She paused, her eyes glittering with something that looked almost like admiration. "I know you died, Helena, and I know you came back." The party continued around us, but I felt like I was frozen in time. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Emma tilted her head. "Because the sister I grew up with couldn't have pulled off what you did. The Helena I knew was brilliant, but never confident enough to act on it. But you've been moving through the world like someone with nothing to lose and everything to prove. Like someone who's already seen how badly things can go." I stared at her, my mind racing. "Even if that were true, why would you—" "Because I remember too, Helena." Emma's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I remember the phone call from the hospital. I remember Mum crying for 3 days straight. I remember Dad saying it was his fault for not supporting your dreams. I remember the funeral we planned that you never got because you vanished from that hospital bed like you'd never existed." The world tilted sideways. "You remember my death?" "I remember everything. The guilt ate our family alive after you died. Mom and Dad blamed themselves for not being there when you needed them most. I blamed myself for being the reason they weren't at your graduation." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "When you came back, somehow 17 again, I thought I was losing my mind. But then I realized we'd been given a gift, a chance to be the family we should have been all along." I looked around the party, at my parents beaming with pride as they showed off photos of my latest achievements, at the guests hanging on every word I spoke, at the life I'd built from the ashes of my first one. "So, all this time, you knew." "I knew, and I've been so proud of you, Helena, not just for what you've accomplished, but for having the strength to forgive us enough to let us be part of your success." Emma squeezed my hand. "Though I have to admit, watching you become everything you were meant to be has been both inspiring and absolutely terrifying." I laughed, and for the first time in either of my lives, it was with genuine warmth toward my sister. "Well, Emma, you ain't seen nothing yet, because this is just the beginning." As the party swirled around us, as our parents basked in the glory of finally having 2 daughters they could be proud of, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't making people pay for their mistakes. Sometimes it's giving them the chance to witness the magnificent person you become despite them. And then, if you're feeling generous, letting them be part of the incredible life you build from the ruins of the one they helped destroy. They skipped my graduation for her recital, but now they'll never skip anything of mine again. Because now, I'm not just the daughter they can't afford to lose. I'm the daughter they're grateful they got a second chance to truly see.